Officer Brady Mercer stepped out of his patrol car, the hot Oklahoma sun pressing down on his shoulders. The day had just begun, but the heat was already unbearable. Beside him, Hawk, his K9 partner, stretched his legs and shook his coat. Hawk was a Dutch Shepherd, a 4-year-old dog with tan and black fur, muscles built for speed and strength, and a nose sharper than anything Brady could imagine. They were a team. Brady trusted Hawk with his life, just as Hawk trusted Brady. They'd been through a lot together over the past 3 years, facing danger side by side, always watching each other's back. Brady often joked that Hawk was more reliable than most people. "You ready, boy?" Brady asked, glancing down at his partner. Hawk looked up at him with those intelligent brown eyes, as if to say, "Let's go." The VA hospital was just a short walk away, a large concrete building filled with veterans who had served their country. It was a place where peace and pain met, where old soldiers sat in waiting rooms telling stories of wars long past. Brady's supervisor had insisted on a thorough security sweep of the facility this morning, and it was just another part of the job for Brady and Hawk. As they walked across the parking lot, Brady couldn't help but think back to the day he was assigned to K9 duty. He had always been a good cop, but working with a dog had changed everything. Hawk wasn't just a dog, he was a partner. He was the one who could sense danger before it even appeared, who could find things that Brady's eyes could never see. They moved down the rows of parked cars, Hawk's nose twitching, sniffing the air, searching for any sign of explosives or accelerants. They were trained for this. Hawk was the best. Brady let Hawk work, trusting him to do his job. But then something shifted. Hawk stopped in his tracks. Brady turned to see what had caused his partner's sudden stillness. Hawk's ears pricked up, his body tense. His gaze was locked on something that Brady couldn't immediately see. Brady's heart began to race. Hawk wasn't the type of dog to get distracted. He only stopped when something important caught his attention. "What is it, Hawk?" Brady asked, his voice low, trying not to break the silence. Hawk didn't respond. He stayed rooted in place, staring at a dusty old pickup truck parked a few spaces away. The truck looked like it had seen better days, rusting away under the harsh sun, its paint peeling like old skin. Brady took a step forward, eyes narrowing in suspicion. "Hawk, come on, let's go," he ordered gently, but Hawk didn't move. He sat down right beside the truck, his focus unwavering. Brady's gut tightened. Hawk's body was still, but the tension was palpable. Something was wrong. Brady crouched down beside him, his hand brushing against Hawk's fur. The dog didn't flinch. Instead, Hawk's gaze never left the truck. The truck looked ordinary. Nothing out of the ordinary. But Brady knew better. Hawk's instincts had saved their lives more times than he could count. "Stay alert, Hawk," Brady muttered to himself. His mind raced, trying to figure out why the dog was so focused. Was there a bomb inside? Could there be something hidden in the truck? Brady's thoughts ran wild as he watched Hawk, feeling his pulse quicken. The dog's nose worked in the air, picking up every scent. Hawk had detected something, and Brady had to find out what it was. They were ready for anything. But this felt different. Brady took another cautious step toward the truck. Hawk remained perfectly still, as if waiting for the next move. Something was hiding in that truck, and it was up to Brady and Hawk to uncover it. Brady's unease grew as he watched Hawk remain frozen beside the old truck. The Dutch Shepherd wasn't moving, not even an inch. His eyes were locked on the vehicle, his body tense, muscles coiled, and his tail stiff. It wasn't like Hawk to be so still. Hawk was trained to search, but he wasn't one to sit down for no reason. He only did that when he found something important. Brady took a step closer, his voice barely a whisper. "Hawk, come on, boy. Let's go." But Hawk didn't budge. He sat there, unwavering, his gaze fixed. Brady's heart pounded harder in his chest. This was no ordinary alert. "Hawk, heel," Brady repeated, trying to sound more commanding this time. Still, the dog didn't respond. His focus was absolute. Brady's gut told him that something wasn't right. Hawk had detected something. But what? The truck looked old and harmless enough, just a beat-up Ford, its faded red paint cracking under the Oklahoma heat. Brady crouched next to his partner, glancing around to make sure no one was watching too closely. "What do you have, boy?" Brady muttered, scratching Hawk behind his ears in a futile attempt to break his focus. Hawk's nose twitched, his eyes darting to the passenger side window, then back to the undercarriage of the truck. Brady followed Hawk's gaze, but he still saw nothing that stood out. Just an old truck like any other in the VA parking lot. But Hawk's behavior told him otherwise. Brady's fingers brushed the radio on his shoulder. He considered calling for backup, but decided to hold off for now. He needed more information. Something about this truck was pulling at his instincts, and Hawk had never been wrong before. "All right, let's take a look," Brady said, standing up. He glanced down at Hawk. "Stay." The dog didn't flinch, his posture still rigid, as though he were guarding something important. Brady walked around the truck slowly, peering through the dusty windows. The inside of the truck seemed ordinary at first. There was an old thermos on the dashboard, a military duffel bag in the back seat. But then something caught his eye. A folded American flag, resting neatly on the dashboard, its edges frayed, from years of service. His heart skipped a beat. Brady leaned in closer, trying to make sense of it all. His mind raced. He had seen flags like this before, used in memorial services for fallen soldiers. He swallowed hard, pushing the thought away, but the feeling of unease didn't leave him. "Hawk?" Brady whispered, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "What is it?" He crouched down and tried to peer under the passenger seat, but it was too dark and cramped. Hawk's nose was already working overtime, sniffing the air, his body rigid as he remained focused on the truck. Brady's breath caught in his throat as the tension between him and his partner grew thicker. Whatever was hidden in that truck was more than just a piece of military memorabilia. Hawk was telling him that there was something else, a secret buried deep, something that Brady hadn't uncovered yet. "What's in there, boy?" Brady asked, his voice cracking slightly. The dog didn't move, his attention entirely consumed by the mystery. Brady stood up again, still unsure what to make of it all. He had to figure it out. But Hawk, as always, was one step ahead. Brady's frustration began to grow as Hawk refused to move, still locked in position next to the truck. Every command Brady gave seemed to fall on deaf ears. Normally, Hawk would obey without hesitation, but not this time. Brady's mind raced, his instincts telling him that something important was hidden in that truck. Hawk had never been so unyielding before. He could feel the weight of the moment, the way Hawk's silence spoke louder than anything. The parking lot around them buzzed with people coming and going. A maintenance worker wheeled a cart past them, but Brady couldn't take his eyes off his dog. The worker gave them a curious glance but said nothing, walking around them with a look of confusion. Brady motioned for him to stay back, his gaze still fixed on Hawk. "What is it, Hawk?" Brady muttered, his voice barely audible. Hawk's eyes never shifted, and his posture remained rock solid. The tension in the air was thick, like a warning that something dangerous was lurking just beneath the surface. Brady had been a cop long enough to know that this wasn't just a random alert. Hawk wasn't wrong. But what was the dog sensing? What was under that seat that was pulling Hawk in like this? Brady crouched down, trying to get a better look inside the truck. His hand reached for the door handle, but before he could open it, he hesitated. "Hawk, come on, buddy," Brady said, a little louder this time. The dog's only response was the deep focus in his eyes. Hawk's nose twitched, as if the scent of something old, something haunting, was still fresh in the air. Brady's breath caught in his chest. He took a deep breath and leaned in closer to the truck window. The interior looked like it belonged to a man who'd seen a lot. A faded duffel bag, worn gloves, and then his eyes landed on something that stopped his heart. A folded American flag neatly placed on the dashboard, its edges frayed as if it had been carefully preserved for years. Brady's gut tightened. This wasn't just a flag. This was a memorial. His fingers pressed against the window as his mind tried to make sense of it. The truck was old, run down. But these military items inside told a story of loss, of sacrifice. "What's your story?" Brady whispered, more to himself than to Hawk. The dog's unwavering attention on the truck felt like a silent answer, urging Brady to keep going, to uncover the truth. Brady's heartbeat quickened as the pieces began to fall into place. He knew there was more to this than just routine security. There was something in that truck that had to be uncovered, something tied to the past. But the real question was, what was it? "Just a little longer, boy," Brady murmured, the unease spreading through him. His hand reached for the door again, but Hawk remained still like a living warning. The silence hung in the air, thick and heavy, as Brady prepared to open the door. What would he find? And would it change everything? Brady leaned in closer to inspect the truck. The unease in his chest grew heavier. Hawk still sat perfectly still, his eyes locked on the vehicle, his nose working overtime. Brady's mind raced, but before he could make sense of what was happening, he heard footsteps approaching. He turned, his gaze meeting the eyes of a man, walking slowly toward him, a man who carried an air of quiet intensity. The man was tall, dressed in faded jeans and a gray t-shirt. His face was weathered, but his eyes held something deeper. A life lived in places where peace didn't exist. Brady could see the unspoken weight the man carried, the kind of look you only saw in those who'd served in the military. "Everything okay, officer?" the man asked, his voice low but steady. His gaze shifted briefly to Hawk, still locked in his alert stance beside the truck. Brady hesitated for a moment before answering. "Not sure yet. My partner here detected something unusual in your truck. We're just trying to figure out what it is." At the mention of the truck, the man's eyes flickered with recognition. For a split second, something shifted in his expression. Was it fear? Guilt? Brady couldn't tell, but it was enough to make him take notice. "Logan Granger," the man said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. He held out a hand, but Brady didn't take it. He wasn't ready to trust this stranger just yet, not with Hawk's alert still hanging in the air. Instead, Brady simply nodded. "Logan Granger," Brady repeated quietly, as if testing the name in his mouth. "You know why we're here?" Logan's gaze lingered on the truck, his jaw tightening. "I'm a vet. Served in the military. Did some time with the Navy," he said, his voice growing quieter with each word. "Just got back from a therapy session, actually." Brady studied him closely. He didn't know why, but there was something in Logan's tone, something in his eyes that made Brady uneasy. This wasn't just a man walking through a parking lot. This was a man who was carrying something far more complicated than a simple military service record. Brady could feel it, the tension between them growing thicker by the second. "What's in that truck, Logan?" Brady asked, his voice firm but not unkind. He had to know if there was more to this than just a simple flag or a few military items. He had to get to the truth. Logan's gaze flicked back to the truck, his eyes darkening. It's just some old military stuff," he said, his voice betraying him. "Memorabilia. Some things I couldn't leave behind." But even as he said it, Brady could hear the lie in his voice. It was too rehearsed, too practiced. Brady could tell this wasn't just about a few relics. There was something else, something more personal that Logan was hiding. He had been around long enough to know when someone was burying a painful truth, and Logan's reaction was all the confirmation he needed. "You don't have to tell me everything, Logan," Brady said, his voice gentler now. "But if there's something in that truck that could put us all in danger, we need to know." Logan's eyes hardened, and for a moment, Brady thought he might walk away. But then, as if deciding, it was finally time to let go of the weight he'd been carrying, Logan took a deep breath. "It's a memorial," Logan said quietly, his eyes lowering, "for a fallen friend." Brady's chest tightened as Logan's words hung in the air. He didn't press him for more. He could tell Logan was struggling to even say that much. But as the weight of the words settled between them, Brady knew the situation was about to change. The flag, the gloves, the duffel bag, they weren't just mementos. They were a piece of Logan's past, a past that he clearly hadn't been ready to face until now, and that was just the beginning. Brady stood still, watching Logan's face as the man's eyes drifted back to the truck. There was a weight in the air, something that didn't belong in a simple security sweep. The conversation was shifting, and Brady could feel the tension growing. The truck wasn't just an ordinary vehicle, it was carrying something heavy, something only Logan seemed to fully understand. Logan sighed, his eyes darkening as he glanced at Brady. "I served with SEAL Team 6, he said, his voice rough like it had been a while since he'd spoken those words. "The kind of missions that keep you up at night. Dangerous stuff. Stuff that leaves scars." Brady felt the weight of Logan's words sink in. SEAL Team 6, one of the most decorated and feared units in the military. He didn't need to hear more to understand what Logan was saying. The man had seen things that most people couldn't even imagine. Still, there was something in his tone, something that told Brady Logan wasn't just talking about missions. This was more personal. Logan looked at the ground, his jaw tightening as he seemed to struggle with the memories. "There are things I'd rather forget," he whispered. "But they don't let you forget. They follow you. Every step." Brady stayed silent, allowing Logan to speak at his own pace. But he couldn't ignore Hawk, who still hadn't moved an inch from his position by the truck. His focus remained intense, like he was guarding something. Brady glanced down at his partner, his heart sinking as he realized the dog wasn't just protecting the truck. He was protecting Logan's past. Logan's eyes flicked to the truck again, his voice faltering. "The truck, it's not just a vehicle," he said, swallowing hard. "It holds a memorial capsule, a tribute to a friend I lost." Brady felt a lump form in his throat. The words hit him harder than he expected. This wasn't just about a truck or military memorabilia. This was a symbol of deep, unresolved grief. Logan wasn't just holding on to the past, he was carrying it with him every day, like a heavy burden he couldn't put down. A memorial capsule. Brady knew what those were, a personal tribute, usually filled with mementos from fallen comrades. They were meant to honor the dead, to keep their memory alive. But the fact that Logan had one, that it was hidden in that truck, it spoke volumes. Hawk's nose twitched slightly, his focus never wavering. Brady's heart sank further. This wasn't just a security threat. This was something far more painful, a reminder of the sacrifices Logan had made, and the ones he'd lost. The dog knew it too. Hawk could feel the weight of that grief. Brady looked up at Logan, his voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to tell me everything, Logan, but if there's something in that truck that could hurt you or anyone else, I need to know." Logan took a deep breath, his gaze softening for the first time. "It's not dangerous," he said, quietly. "But it's something I can't let go of. It's the only piece of him I have left." Brady nodded, understanding now more than ever. The truck, the items inside, it wasn't just about security. It was about a man who had lost a part of himself and had been carrying that loss for far too long. And now, with Hawk at his side, Brady had to figure out how to help him lay it down. Brady stood for a moment, caught between his duty and the weight of Logan's words. The truck wasn't just a simple vehicle. It was a vessel of memories and grief. His mind raced as he glanced at Hawk, who still sat beside the truck, unwavering. The dog's focus had only deepened as the moments passed. There was no going back now. "All right," Brady said softly, taking a deep breath. "Let's see what's inside." He reached for the passenger door handle, the metal cold against his hand. As the door creaked open, a rush of old fabric and motor oil hit him, mixing with the heavy smell of dust. It was like opening a time capsule, one that hadn't been touched in years. Brady's heart pounded in his chest as he carefully leaned inside the truck. His eyes scanned the clutter, taking in the items that told the story of a man who had seen too much. An old thermos, a military duffel bag, and then his eyes landed on something that stopped him dead in his tracks, a folded American flag resting on the dashboard like a silent sentinel. "Hawk, stay," Brady whispered, though he knew his partner was already aware of everything. Hawk didn't move. His attention was entirely on the truck. Brady shifted his gaze to the floor under the passenger seat. His fingers trembled slightly as he slid his hand beneath the seat, feeling around in the darkness. A chill ran down his spine when he encountered something wrapped tightly in canvas sealed with duct tape. It was heavy, its edges sharp against his fingers. His breath hitched as he gently pulled the bundle out from under the seat. Hawk shifted beside him, his alert posture unwavering, but Brady didn't take his eyes off the package. His heart raced as he began unwrapping the bundle, each layer of fabric falling away like a piece of history being revealed. The last layer peeled back, and there it was, a scorched, metal cylinder, its surface pitted and blackened by heat. The object felt both foreign and familiar, like a symbol of something Brady wasn't yet ready to understand. Logan's voice broke the silence, a rawness in it that Brady hadn't expected. "That's a memorial capsule," Logan said quietly. "A piece of my friend. A piece of the man who didn't make it back." Brady stood still, the weight of the capsule in his hands feeling heavier than it should. The realization hit him hard. This wasn't just an object. This wasn't a forgotten item from a soldier's past. It was a piece of someone who had died, someone Logan had lost. Logan took a step closer, his eyes locking on the cylinder in Brady's hands. "I was there," he whispered, his voice cracking. "He saved my life. I didn't deserve to make it back. He did." Brady felt a lump form in his throat as he looked at the memorial capsule. It wasn't just a tribute. It was a scar, a reminder of what Logan had survived and what he had lost. Hawk's intense focus, his calm presence beside them, felt like a silent tribute to the man who was no longer there. Logan turned away, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "That capsule," he said quietly, his voice full of emotion. "It's all that's left of him, all that's left of the brother I failed to save." Brady's heart ached as he understood, not just the weight of the object, but the burden Logan had been carrying for all these years. The pain, the guilt, it was all wrapped in that metal cylinder, and Hawk, still sitting at attention, had known this before anyone else. Logan's voice cracked as he spoke. The words seemed to struggle to leave his lips, weighed down by years of grief. "Atlas," he started, his eyes fixed on the memorial capsule in Brady's hands. "He was more than a dog, he was my partner, my best friend." Brady stayed silent, watching Logan carefully. He could see the pain in the man's eyes, the sorrow that had never fully healed. Logan wasn't just talking about a dog. He was talking about a bond that had been forged in the heat of battle, a bond that went deeper than anything Brady could truly understand. Logan took a deep breath and continued. "Atlas was a German shepherd, strong and loyal. He wasn't just trained to sniff out danger, he could sense it. He could read people, situations. He always knew when something wasn't right." Brady's eyes shifted to Hawk, who was still sitting next to the truck, his gaze softening as Logan spoke. It was like Hawk knew this story too, like the dog could feel the weight of Logan's words. Brady watched the connection between the two men, Logan and Atlas, and now Logan and Hawk. It was a bond built on something more than just duty. Logan's eyes glazed over as memories flooded him. "We were on a mission in Afghanistan, one of the toughest I've ever been on. We were walking through this old village and it was quiet. Too quiet." He paused, swallowing hard. "I remember thinking it was too easy, but Atlas..." He stopped. He froze, his head low, ears up. He was onto something. Logan's voice faltered, and Brady could hear the grief in every word. "I didn't know what was happening, but Atlas did. He was always a step ahead, always protecting me. That day, he saved my life. He stepped on an IED, an improvised explosive device. I wasn't even close to it, but Atlas, he took the blast." Brady's heart sank as he listened to Logan's words. The image of the explosion, the sacrifice Atlas had made, filled the air between them like a heavy fog. Hawk's posture remained firm, but his eyes had softened, like he understood the depth of what Logan had just shared. Logan's voice broke as he continued. I watched him fall. He saved me, but he didn't make it out. I was too late to help him. The blast was too much for him. Brady looked down at Hawk, who now seemed to lean slightly toward Logan, almost as if offering comfort, his eyes full of understanding. The bond between soldiers and their dogs was something that couldn't be put into words. It was a connection that ran deeper than anything else, built on trust, loyalty, and sacrifice. Logan's gaze met Brady's, his expression pained but resolute. Atlas was the best partner I ever had, and I failed him. He didn't deserve that. The weight of Logan's grief was overwhelming, and Brady could feel the silence stretch between them. But Hawk, ever the silent companion, seemed to understand. He moved closer to Logan, pressing his head against the man's leg. It wasn't a gesture of training. It was something more, a recognition of shared pain. Atlas didn't deserve to die that day, Logan said quietly, almost to himself. But he gave everything to save me, and I'll never forget that. Brady nodded slowly, his heart heavy with the depth of Logan's loss. He could feel the bond between them, and between Logan and Atlas, as though it had transcended the years, surviving in that single powerful memory. Hawk stayed close to Logan, his presence a quiet reminder of the loyalty and love that could exist between a man and his dog, even after death. The story of Atlas was one that would live on in the heart of every soldier, every handler, and in the heart of Logan. Forever. Logan's voice trembled as he spoke again, quieter this time, as though the words had been waiting to break free. For years, I've carried Atlas's memory alone for too long, he admitted, his eyes downcast. I've never really healed from the loss. I thought I could just push through it, but it's never gone away. It's still here, every day. Brady stayed silent, feeling the weight of Logan's words settle over them both. Hawk, who had been standing still at his side, took a small step forward, closing the gap between himself and Logan. Brady watched, feeling something shift in the air. Hawk's gaze softened as he looked up at Logan, his body language gentle but intentional. Hawk? Logan whispered, looking down at the dog. Hawk, sensing the moment, slowly moved closer, his nose brushing against Logan's leg. The dog's movements were slow, deliberate, as if he understood the depth of Logan's pain. Then, without any command, Hawk did something unexpected. He pressed his head gently against Logan's shoulder, letting out a soft whine, a sound filled with empathy and understanding. It wasn't just a dog's instinct. It was a warrior's gesture, the kind of comfort only a partner could offer. Logan froze, his body stiffening at the sudden contact. His breath caught in his throat, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the walls he had built around himself began to crack. He closed his eyes, and the tears that had been held back for so long finally spilled over. I'm so sorry, Atlas, Logan whispered, his voice breaking as he sank to his knees. I didn't save you, and I've carried that guilt all this time. I never let anyone help me. Never let myself heal. Brady took a step back, giving Logan the space he needed, but his heart ached for the man who had been living with this burden alone. As Logan knelt, still holding on to Hawk's comforting presence, Brady realized that this wasn't just a moment of grief. It was a moment of healing. Hawk's quiet whine was a soft lullaby in the background, offering a silent promise. You don't have to carry this by yourself anymore. Logan's hands trembled as he reached out to stroke Hawk's fur, the touch gentle, reverent. You understand, don't you, boy? Logan whispered, his voice hoarse. You know what it's like to lose someone you love. The connection between Logan and Hawk was undeniable. The two of them, bound by loss and sacrifice, were finally starting to heal together. Hawk didn't speak, but his actions were clear. He stayed by Logan's side, offering the comfort and loyalty that only a dog could provide. He had known this pain before, and now he was offering Logan the one thing he hadn't allowed himself to accept, the chance to mourn and heal with a friend who understood. Logan leaned into the dog, letting out a deep, shuddering breath. Thank you, boy, he whispered, the words barely audible. It wasn't just gratitude, it was surrender. Logan was finally letting go of the pain he had held onto for so long, and as Hawk sat beside him, his head resting against Logan's shoulder, the two of them were no longer alone in their grief. Together they were starting to heal. Logan stood there, his hand resting on Hawk's head, his emotions raw, his body still trembling from the release of years of grief. He had spent so much time alone with his pain, trying to carry the memory of Atlas by himself. But now, with Hawk by his side, it felt different. He wasn't alone anymore. Brady stood quietly, watching Logan carefully. He had been through the emotional storm with him, but this moment, this was the turning point. Logan's shoulders sagged slightly as he looked at the memorial capsule in his hand. It wasn't just a piece of metal. It was a connection to a part of his life he had tried to bury. "You don't have to carry this alone anymore," Brady said softly, his voice filled with understanding. "There are people who want to help you carry the weight, Logan. People who understand. It's okay to let go." Logan turned toward him, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "But how?" His voice cracked. "How do I let go of something like this? How do I stop feeling like I failed him?" Brady stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to forget Atlas. You just have to honor his memory in a way that helps you heal. Bringing the capsule to a group of people who understand, who've been through the same pain, could be the start. You don't have to do it alone anymore." Logan stood still for a long moment, the weight of Brady's words sinking in. He glanced down at the capsule, his fingers brushing over the worn edges. Then slowly his grip softened. The decision was hard, but something inside him shifted. He had carried this for too long. It was time to share the burden. With a deep breath, Logan nodded. "You're right. It's time." Brady smiled, a sense of relief flooding through him. He knew that Logan's journey toward healing wouldn't be easy, but this was the first step. Hawk, sensing the shift in the air, looked up at Logan, his eyes soft and full of understanding. Logan's gaze met the dog's, and for the first time in years he felt the weight of his grief begin to lift. Hawk had been there with him every step of the way, and now he would be there as Logan took the next step. Logan stood a little taller, his steps a little lighter, as he turned to walk toward the hospital. The pain of losing Atlas would always be a part of him, but now he had a chance to heal. He had the support of people who understood, and more importantly, he had Hawk, his partner, his friend, by his side. Brady watched them both walk toward the hospital, the bond between them undeniable. It was a small victory, but one that would lead to bigger steps. Logan was finally ready to let others help him carry the weight of his memories. "You're not alone, Logan," Brady whispered, watching the two of them disappear into the distance. "Not anymore." As the day began to fade into evening, Brady couldn't help but pause for a moment, taking in everything that had transpired. What had started as a routine security sweep at the VA hospital had turned into something far deeper, something more personal. It had turned into a moment of healing, something that Brady hadn't expected but was grateful for. He glanced over at Hawk, who was walking beside him, his tail swaying with each step. The bond between them was undeniable. They had faced so much together. In every dangerous situation, Hawk had been his protector, his partner. But today, something else had shifted between them. It wasn't just about the job anymore. It was about healing. It was about being there for someone who needed it. Brady's eyes followed Logan and Hawk's earlier interaction. Logan had walked toward the therapy group, the memorial capsule in his hands. It wasn't just a small step for Logan, it was a giant leap forward. He had taken the hardest step, acknowledging his grief, and finally allowing others to help him carry the weight. "I never thought I'd see the day," Brady whispered to himself, his eyes watching Logan disappear through the hospital doors. He's finally ready to heal. Hawk's soft whine pulled Brady from his thoughts. He turned to the dog, who had stopped walking, his head tilting slightly as if sensing his handler's reflection. Brady smiled gently and knelt down to rub Hawk behind his ears. "You did good today, boy. We both did." The dog leaned into, the touch, his eyes calm and understanding. Hawk didn't need words to know what Brady was feeling. The bond they shared was a silent one built over years of trust, sacrifice, and loyalty. Brady stood up and resumed their patrol, Hawk right beside him. But as they walked through the quiet parking lot, there was a change in the air. It was subtle, but Brady could feel it. It was as though the weight of the day had lifted, leaving behind a sense of calm and peace. For the first time, it felt like something had truly shifted, not just for Logan, but for himself too. Brady took a deep breath, feeling a sense of contentment that he hadn't known in a long time. His job wasn't just about keeping the peace, about guarding places or patrolling parking lots. It was about something more, about helping others find their peace, just as he had found his, with Hawk by his side. "You know, Hawk," Brady said softly, his voice filled with quiet pride. "Sometimes our job is bigger than we think. It's not just about what we do. It's about who we help along the way." Hawk's tail wagged once and Brady chuckled softly. It was the kind of small, simple moment that reminded him why he did what he did. The bond between them, between a handler and his K9, wasn't just a partnership. It was a lifeline that could heal even the deepest wounds. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Brady smiled to himself. Today had been a turning point, not just for Logan, but for him too. He wasn't just a cop with a K9 partner. He was a part of something bigger, something that went beyond the badge. And for the first time, Brady felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. "Let's keep going, boy," Brady said, giving Hawk one last pat. "We've got more work to do." And as they continued their patrol, Brady knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together, just as they always had. A new chapter had begun for Logan, and for him and Hawk, it was just another step in their shared journey.